Evening, everybody, or welcome to the KTSE third installment Chat and Shoe entitled Hella Deep. Thank you for being a part of the first and second installment. This will be, for right now, the last of a series, unless we all decide as a group that we want more. This session will be mostly about Nathaniel Smith, our Chief Equity Officer, coming in and imparting words of wisdom. And then we also want to hear from you in your individual breakout sessions as you feel comfortable to share about this notion of what it means to be a youth in solving these problems today. I think typically people have kind of left it up to the adults to make these large decisions, and then we inherit those problems when we get old enough to try to wrestle with them. But now there's kind of this era of young leadership coming about, and we want to make sure we support that and leverage that as much as possible. So I have my wonderful co-host with me, Erica Vincent, and today we're going to try to make this as insightful and as communication stimulating. I don't know if I said that correctly at all. As possible, but if we're sitting here talking the entire time, then we're doing a bad job. So I would love for you all to bring what you have to the table to make this what it's going to be. Okay? So I'll pass it over to Erica so she can discuss some norms.
Thanks, everybody. And we will continue to welcome more people into this conversation as folks join. Hopefully, we had about 25 people last time I checked registered for this session, so hopefully folks are able to join us. I want to go over our meeting norms. I also am going to post the notes document in the chat so that you all can follow along today. And this is a running notes document from all three of the sessions of the chat and choose that we've had. So going to the notes. Pulling that up. So here are our meeting norms that we've come up with for the last two sessions. And we'll continue to build on these, as we have more chat and choose. As Michael mentioned, this might not be the last, but this is the last installment of this summer series. But we may very well continue it into the fall. So meeting norms for the Summer Southeast Youth Chat and Choose for KTSE. Confidentiality, making sure that we are keeping any personal stories that folks are telling in this group. Additionally, I would add that to confidentiality, even with the person that may have told you something. So maybe not bringing up any personal stories if you know this person or see them later, but confidentiality in that space is in that way as well. I heard that the other day and I thought that was a good practice. Step up, step back. So that is like, if you are often someone who speaks a lot during these conversations, maybe making sure that you're giving space and time for other people to do so. And also if you are someone who doesn't necessarily speak up, all the time, or isn't necessarily the first person to speak up, maybe hopefully stepping into that, because we know that you have valuable things to add and we want to make sure that your points of view gets recorded as well. Let's try to keep 3 minutes tops on any speaking time. So if you are speaking, maybe keeping it to 3 minutes, so we can get as many people to speak as possible, but also we're going to have Nathaniel in here later. He's going to speak for a few minutes. And then hopefully you all have lots of questions for him. And we want to make sure that we get as many in there as possible. And he did already say that he does not want to spend his whole time talking, but really, really wants to have a conversation with you all. So just keep that in mind as he comes in at 6. I think his speaking time is 6:30. Utilizing Zoom reactions and the raised hand option. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see that there are reactions and options for you to raise your hand if you have a question. So I'll be keeping an eye on the chat so that I can see if folks like have raised their hand if they have a question or want to interject and have a comment as well. We want to make sure that this is conversational and not just, definitely not us talking at you all for, you know, for the next hour and a half. Unpacking any use of acronyms. So I say KTSE, we're talking about the Keep That Same Energy Youth Initiative. If there are any other acronyms that you say, make sure that we're explaining those and other terms that people might not understand. And then any like other jargon that folks use, make sure that we are putting those in the chat, putting the definition of those terms in the chat. Because we know that we have folks that have been here for a couple of chat and chews, maybe some of you all it's your first time. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same playing field as far as understanding the terms that we're using. Are there any additional norms that we should make sure that we're adding to this list today? Okay, great. Glad that we have all that stuff covered. So we will move into the next item on our agenda, which I believe is the breakout groups piece. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so we're going to break out into two groups. I'm going to lead one and Blythe is going to lead the other. And we're going to get to know each other a little bit better and try to stimulate some conversation so that by the time Nathaniel comes in, you'll be primed and ready to go to facilitate that conversation with him. Okay? Erica, how do you just going to split them up evenly? Cool.
Yep, I'm going to split them up right now. Let me give you and Blythe recording capabilities.
Mm-hmm. And if you get into your session and you don't want to be recorded or you don't feel comfortable with it, please let us know. But we will be recording these sessions because we use them as teachable moments later on down the line. And to date, everybody's been able to be recorded and nobody's had a problem. So, thank you.
Yep. Yes, and we can, of course, also, like Mike said, we can pause the recording as well if you're speaking and don't want to be recorded. I think we're played. Let's move you over. One second. I'm just moving folks around to make sure we have enough people. Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. So I am going to facilitate us just reporting back any big themes that may have come up during our time together in our breakout groups. So we'll do that for a few minutes while we wait for Nathaniel to come back. And then I'll let Michael introduce him, and then we'll move on to that portion of the section. So I'm not going to necessarily like split us up and talk about, you know, what group one said or what group two said. I'd love to just hear kind of a popcorn from folks, about your thoughts, some big things that may have come up during your breakout room time, or any other things that you've been thinking about as you've been going through the summer, either away from school or, you know, just quarantine for whatever reason. So I'll stop there, and, you know, maybe we can spend the next 8 minutes just kind of talking about whatever big things are coming up for you as you figure out what you want to do as you're moving forward with your leadership.
Somebody from my group gotta go. Either it's gonna be Gwen, Jaden, Ross, George, somebody. Come on.
I nominate George.
There we go. I like the energy.
Okay, I'll go since I was sort of volunteered to go, which is cool. So one thing that we talked about was kind of the context of the current times that we're living in, the current social and political landscape, and we just kind of, you know, excavated what it means, you know, to be living in the midst of, you know, COVID-19, this pandemic, but also another pandemic that has been in this country since 1619, right, racism. And so just talking about how Black and Brown communities have been both adversely affected in both ways. And even someone shared how, I forget his name. I can't see him, but he shared how he has had to personally take a stance with his friends, and as far as being aware of Jaden, there you are, of how COVID-19 impacts his friend group. So I don't, you know, want to steal a story, but you know, very tangibly so, these are issues that are impacting us. And just consider, and something that I kind of mentioned, it feels as if, you know, living in this time, it's become very tiring and traumatizing. And you kind of like have this antithesis and this contrast that's kind of like the overarching theme of this point in history. And so while you have instances where racist imagery and caricature and the removal of Confederate statues are occurring, you also, we are still existing in a space and time in which the police officers that murdered Breonna Taylor, you know, still have not been brought to justice. And so considering all of that, and even personally considering how family members and friends have died of COVID-19, you know, mitigating these risks and these factors, to what extent or when will, you know, anything get better? When, you know, we've seen, like, you know, change, and we've seen how agency in this like movement and in this struggle, how it has progressed and how social change has occurred, but there are still a lot of things that need to be talked about. And so that's kind of what we discussed in our group.
Awesome, thank you, George. Fantastic. Thoughts to what George said, or anything else that came up for you, or anything else that's coming up for you as you're thinking about these things?
I just want to reiterate something that Juan said that I thought was really great. Just talking about how life will try you in small ways all the time. It won't be, you know, big things where you can obviously tell, oh, this is wrong, I need to do something. It's going to be in small ways. And also how life will condition us not to speak up when it's most important. Yeah, I just really appreciated that. I wrote it down because I thought it was great. Yeah, so thank you, Juan, for your words of wisdom.
I love that. For sure. Anything else? I'm just texting Nathaniel.
What did your group talk about, Erica?
I wasn't in a group. You talking about
Oh,
Blythe.
I'm sorry, Blythe.
Well, I was gonna say I would love if Kennedy or Jasmine spoke up. We had some good discussion topics. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah.
I got,
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
Oh,
No.
no one wants.
Both
I
of
love
you.
it. We'll partner up. I guess I'll introduce it and then you can close us off.
Sure.
So yeah, just kind of like what the question started us off with, like how our normalcy has changed. I think we can all agree that we hate virtual interactions. I will say personally, I appreciate virtual meetings because they're helping me stay a little bit more organized, because it's like you're always on front of your computer screen. There's just, you don't really have time to go do something else and be late to something. So I will say that's pretty great. I will say connection wise, it's been kind of hard because it's like one of those things, like I did a virtual happy hour with my previous internship and it was just kind of weird logging off and you're just there by yourself. So definitely missed that. But it was great to know that everyone was still there for one another, even though we're not physically there. It's good to see like your friends that are your friends are really will still be there for you. And then from there too, we're talking about how we can keep the initiative going. I mentioned something along the lines of a lot of people kind of let their opinions be guided by the media. And that's not to say I don't. I'm just as much a victim to it as everyone else. And so just kind of, I guess, if there was a way to be able to continue to educate the youth, I think that would be something really cool that Keep the Same Energy can keep doing. Although I know you guys are already doing, but it'd be cool to see you guys to continue to keep doing that.
Yeah, so and on the topic of like what we can do like in our communities as leaders, as pillars, we were talking about like the upcoming election and how and like what are our thoughts about that? How do we see young people kind of rallying towards November? And so what I was saying is that something important that we need to think about is to like remember what our values are, because just by us being so connected on social media, especially now, all of our meetings are online. We have like all of this information at our fingertips. And so our thoughts, you know, like can sometimes be influenced by whoever we see the most on our Instagram feed or on our YouTube ads. So it's like, you know, still keeping that sharp, keen mind about what you want to see or what you want to see develop rather within a certain term, and seeing if the candidates match up to that versus, you know, who's supposed to win the election or who, you know, or who we just kind of like, you know, like we're just ready to see kind of leave. And that's on both the national level and on the municipal level as well. So just being able to navigate that and being able to kind of like organize your thoughts, knowing when the deadlines are, knowing what your role is, knowing who is a representative of the Electoral College for your state, you know, knowing what, you know, how they lean as far as their ideas and values. So it's like, you know, it's more so of like looking intrinsically and like figuring out where do you want to see your community or where do you want to see your city or state, you know, a couple of months from now or a year from now, because, you know, I definitely feel like our voices matter the most on the local level. And so instead of, you know, us just kind of sort of like just holding a dialogue about what changes need to be done, we can actually ignite that investigation, ignite that curiosity to mold that consensus.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that's kind of what we hit on.
Thank you so much for that.
This was hella deep.
Yes, thanks for the
Okay.
moment.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to our Chief Equity Officer, Nathaniel Smith. Nathaniel is the reason that we're all here, to be quite frank. He came with a vision a couple of years ago to Erica and said he wants a youth equity army. He wants young people to be prepared and to be able to fight the equity fight in the community. And so 2 years later, now we sit here on this Zoom together. So I'm really delighted and excited about this on International Youth Day to have Nathaniel come and speak to us. What this is going to go in a really free form way. I'm going to ask some small questions just to get the conversation started. But this is really about you all and about what you want to know from him, and what it took basically to get to this point that we can have a racial equity conversation in the South in America. Like that's not typical, and that's not normal. So without further ado, Nathaniel, please take it away. And once you introduce yourself, then I will ask you a question.
So let me first start by just saying how excited I am about this conversation and just the energy that I am feeling from everyone's engagement on this Zoom call. I had a chance to listen a little bit and really kind of take in the exchange and the dialogue. And, it was just really, really encouraging to hear. And even more so, just so honored and proud of Michael and Erica and their deep commitment to ensuring that young people and younger people are leading the way for racial justice, and that keep that same energy as providing the mechanism by which authentic youth engagement can happen. When I first got the real inspiration around being a lot more strategic about engaging young people, a lot of that really had to do with me going back to the future, so to speak, and remembering when I was a younger person who started out doing protests and organizing and engaging at a very, very young age, because my parents were involved with a social justice organization in the South. And through osmosis, almost, I had to kind of learn about my value as it relates to the importance of young people, learning through history about how many of the leaders that have passed away recently started out as young people in this struggle, and that movements cannot survive and grow without the courage and passion of young people. And even more so, the importance of not just expecting young people, even though they are passionate and have the energy to move the work, that we've got to do what we can to ensure that we equip them with the tools and the information that they need in order to be effective. My goal and the goal of PSE is not to create a kids' table at Thanksgiving for young people. It's not about us trying to create this table where when it's time for us to flaunt as if we're engaging young people, then we will pull you all out of your mothballs and say, see, we have young youth engagement. This is really about how do we insert and help to facilitate the engagement of young people throughout PSE's efforts. And even more so, how do we begin the process of positioning youth voice in all of our work, and even more so youth leadership. This is not something that is an overnight effort. We're not keep that same energy for a month or two and then going back to what we were doing before. Almost every portfolio or program that PSC has a youth engagement element. From our climate efforts around climate justice and energy equity, to our economic inclusion efforts through the Georgia Alliance for Men and Boys of Color and the Youth Advisory Council, to the incredible work that the Just Growth team does with the summer camp that we just finished for the Transformation Academy, and also the work that we'll be doing at Carver High School. Again, creating the next generation and today's generation of equity leaders. And so a lot of it isn't just because I read it in the book why you all are here. It is because this is how I got here. It's because people took the time to position me in a way and saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. But also I had the initiative and knew how to leverage opportunities in a way that will allow me to serve my community and the people that I cared the most about. So I just wanted to say that, because I want you all to know that this commitment to youth leadership and youth engagement starts at the top of the organization. That this is not an intermediary or middle kind of commitment where the senior leadership is not as committed to youth engagement as other aspects of the organization. Other than my board, it doesn't get any higher than me in the organization. So we're very, very much committed to it. I'm very much committed to your development. I'm also very much committed to always looking for opportunities and also trying my best to facilitate and manifest opportunities for you to engage. It's always incredible, because I see Michael's work and him, working at the Partnership for Southern Equity and moving forward. And then I look at Erica and just remembering her and her engagement, coming from, Spelman and now, doing just really exciting things. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. It's about creating the next generation, because, and I'll stop with this piece of the discussion. We are not in a sprint. We are in a marathon for racial justice. The 300 years of oppression and the 100 years of de facto segregation and racial apartheid in America will not end tomorrow, because it didn't begin yesterday. We're talking about years and years of structural injustice that continue to manifest itself in all areas of our society. As a result of that, we cannot sprint exclusively towards justice. All of these events that we're experiencing are moments in time. But we've also got to remember that in this race towards racial justice, it is just our time at this moment to carry the baton. That before us, there were people running this race, and tomorrow there will be people running this race. Your responsibility, my responsibility, the responsibility of the Partnership for Southern Equity is to run as hard as we can. So when it is time for us to pass the baton off, we'll be closer to the finish line than we were when we began. So I just wanted to share that. I will take a step back, and Michael, I don't know if you have any questions for me, but I'd be more than happy to answer them. If that's how you want to proceed.
No, you have absolutely hit the nail on the head. So I would love to use this time effectively to open it up to the group. And please ask any questions that you may have of Nathaniel. And we could do it in a stack form, however you all want to do it. But
you all can also type questions in the chat, and maybe Mike, as we're waiting for folks to type questions in the chat, you want to do one of yours, and we'll let folks type questions in the chat, and then they can either say it, or we can also say it for them too, if folks feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you really tackled two of the questions already. So I'll move to this one. What are the common themes or character traits of successful leaders that you've seen over your lifetime?
Empathy is very, very important. The ability to put, or at least attempt to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and to not be comfortable with your own condition, but to want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have a better life, and really not just have sympathy for the conditions of others, but empathy. I think that's very, very important. Also, that there takes a level of resilience in leaders, because there are going to be times where you're going to fall. And eventually, it's not about whether you fall, but whether you get up and keep going. and you've got to keep going. And so that level of resilience is also important. I think it's also important for you not to take yourself so serious. You know, if you've been called and assigned to a purpose, that purpose is bigger than you. You're not bigger than that purpose. And so the more that you're able to understand that, the more you're able to kind of align yourself with what needs to be done in order to be successful. You've also got to be a master of the area that you want to lead. You know, it's not about a feeling all the time or your ability to speak well. You've got to understand the facts and understand what the data is saying. So you've got to learn. You got to focus on educating yourself around a particular issue if you want to master it. And, you know, I think also leaders who are able to communicate, right? Whether it be through words or through writing or through actions. You know, there are many ways that leaders communicate, and it's always good to be able to communicate in all three of the areas that I have articulated. So, you know, so for me, I mean, I think those are some of the traits of a leader, but really, at the end of the day, the times dictate the leader just as much as the leader dictates the times. And so, you know, it's, you know, a leader, you know, back in the 1600s may be very different than what we will need in leadership in 2021, right? So it's about the times as well, and whether, you know, whether that particular leader is able to rise to the occasion. And a lot of leaders are shaped by their times. I mean, I know I was. And so, you know, those are just some of my thoughts about that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nathaniel. So I have a question here from Kennedy. And Kennedy, feel free to ask any follow-up questions verbally, but Kennedy wants to know, what roles have your mentors played in your life, and what was it what you needed at the time?
You know, I think, you know, I've been blessed to have different types of mentors, right? So everybody is not going to mentor you in the same way. And you have to be willing to meet those mentors where they are. I remember one time I had one particular mentor that I really, really wanted to have a closer relationship with. And that person really mentored me from a distance. I learned from, you know, we had a relationship, but I really learned more from his mistakes, and learned from other ways of kind of watching him from a distance than him actually being a lot more present in my life the older I got. You know, I also had one mentor that taught me through stories and through her experiences. You know, I would sit down at her feet and listen to many of the challenges that she faced and how she was able to maneuver those challenges. And, you know, she never automatically gave me instruction. It was really more through stories that she mentored me. And I really appreciated that because I learned a lot from those stories. You know, I've also had, you know, mentors that have, you know, been a little bit more present in my life. But I think for me, I was able to kind of take different pieces from those mentors. You know, I had another mentor of mine that mentored me about character and about living my sermon, which for me is really, really important. And, you know, I really appreciated it. And again, he didn't sit down and talk to me about that. You know, it was really more about watching him and how he chose to live his life. And that really influenced me in a great way. And I hope my staff can see that in the way that I carry myself and in how I lead and do the work. So I will say that to a certain extent, it has been really valuable for me to have mentors. It's always good also to have mentors that may be of a different sex than you or orientation. I think you can learn a great deal from those experiences by having someone who is trying to lead from a different point of privilege. That's been very, very good for me. I've had a lot of women mentors in my life that and they've really helped me a great deal in having empathy and really wanting to be true to who I am. But to answer your question, yes, it's been very beneficial. But there are times where, and here's the thing, sometimes your mentors will let you down, right? Because you will, well, there are two reasons. One, you put them on a pedestal and sometimes you don't understand that they're human. But then the other times it's because they're too busy and you may want to spend more time with them and they don't have time for that. So you got to meet them where they are and allow them to be human. The same way that they're pouring into you, you'd be surprised how they're still going through a growth phase themselves. And so I had to learn that the hard way as well with some of my mentors.
Well said, well said. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're welcome.
Nathaniel, I'm gonna go to Gwen next. Gwen, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, before I ask my question, I was just gonna comment on something you said earlier, Mr. Smith, about how the emphasis on really bringing young people in is from the top. And I haven't ever had the chance to meet you personally, but I've met with a lot of other PSC people on this call, Erica, Blythe, Chandra, Juan, Michael. And I do want to say in every single interaction I've had with them, I really have felt like that was happening. I didn't feel like I was ever there to be the young person or just, oh, I'll cater to her, I'll listen to her, but then that's it. I felt like in all of our interactions, I felt valued as a contributor. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, that means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. You have no idea because, like I said, it's just really important for us to move differently in these times.
Yeah, it means a lot to me too. And a lot of other young people that have also interacted with them. Because I think youth empowerment is something that's really needed. Because it's easy to feel like we're not wanted or needed in spaces. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. But my question was, what roles do you want to see young people more involved in? So like, what are spaces that right now you feel like young people should be in more than they are now?
So I believe that young people need to be in more training spaces. You may think you know everything, but you don't. And in particular on how to organize and engage systems for transformational change that comes through training, that comes through building your civic muscle. And I think for me, it's really important to do our part in preparing you all again for the long road, for the work that is to come. So I would really like to see more young people leverage PSC's training capacity. We have 4 different leadership development programs, and I think that I really want more young people to engage in those. I also think that there is real opportunity for young people to engage in our equity circles, which, each portfolio area has equity circles, and, really trying to figure out ways for young people to engage in that in our summits as well. We have youth ambassadors that are connected to our summits, in particular our Just Energy Summit. And so, it's engaging young people around advancing and elevating the consciousness of community around the summit and really getting young people to engage and come. And I'm not sure if we have the ambassadors this year for the summit, but we've had in the past. Yes, I see Erica nodding. So, that is an opportunity, I think, for young people to get involved. And then last but certainly not least, I think there are many other frontline organizations that we support and engage that you'd be surprised only have 1 or 2 staff. They're trying their best to do a lot in the community, and we do what we can to be helpful, but you would be amazed at how beneficial it would be for you to use some of your physical capital to invest in these organizations by way of your volunteerism. I think, it creates a great opportunity for them to increase their capacity. And it also provides an opportunity for you to learn. about what the real work is, not the, the marches are very dramatic and can be, adrenaline filled experience. But when the marches are done and it's time to get the real policy, right, and power building and real work around kind of mobilizing people for the long haul. There are many organizations that have been at it for a long time that I love and respect. And how do you keep it going is a lesson that's important to learn. And I think by engaging some of the organizations that we're connected to and volunteering with them, I think it'd be a really great opportunity for you to learn that.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathaniel. So we have about 7 minutes left. We probably are going to go a little over, guys, because we want to make sure that we also give you some information about how you can stay connected with PSC after this call. But I wanted to go to Jasmine's question and then Ross, and then we'll close out. Jasmine's question was, how do you motivate your teams when times are tough? That's a really good one.
I mean, she should be asking you all that. I don't know. How do I do that, Erica? How do I do that, Michael? How do I do that?
I'll say, just like having worked at PSC for the last 2.5 years, I think that what I know to be true is everyone who works at PSC, like, this is our life's work, and Nathaniel recognizes that in us. And because Nathaniel recognizes that in us, I think we do a really good job of encouraging each other. And also, we always hear, and Nathaniel's very transparent with us about what's going on in the organization, and also like how that affects what's going on outside of the organization, and how the things that we're dealing with in the world or in society, and making sure that PSC is listening to the people and being a voice for the people, and also like lifting the people up and them wanting to be more involved, is really, really inspirational for me. And I think I could speak for the rest of the staff safely here and say the same thing. So I think finding ways that we can be helpful, even in a global pandemic when we're all home, has been really great. And everyone's helped out with that, but Nathaniel's really still steered the ship on that piece.
Yeah, I would say as a newcomer of PSC in my first 8 months, my first couple weeks in the office was just looking at all the posters and going to his office and seeing the things that he's accomplished. And it was like, it's so much distance between where he is and what he's done and where I am, that motivates me to want to do more, because it just lets me know that one person can make a hell of a lot of a difference. And so I think through by his walk and through by the way he goes about doing what he does, it motivates us to keep pushing.
Thanks for that question, Jasmine. That was a good one for us. And then I'll close out with Ross's question, which is, most great leaders have even greater mentors. What advice can you give a great leader on seeking mentors?
So I'm just a firm believer in the law of attraction. I believe that my staff that is with me, all almost 30 of us are here because they were attracted to something that was bigger than me. And I think that, and this may sound overly philosophical or spiritual for some people on the phone, and I can't apologize for that, because that's my point of reference and how I do my work. But I do believe that you get back what you put out in the universe, and that the universe will give you what you need when you need it. And if you really believe that, and if you really try your best to carry yourself in a way that will attract what you want in your life, then that mentorship will come. And again, I think that, the older you kind of get and the more seasoned you get in the work, you begin to understand that there is no such thing as a perfect mentor, right? There's no such thing as someone that has every trait that you're looking for. I mean, you have to, try to connect with many people, because you can get different pieces of the puzzle from them. I give you a perfect example. I consider my daughter a mentor. She's only 15, but there's a lot that I'm learning from her in terms of how she looks at the world, how courageous she is, how much swag she has. It's like, it's a lot that I learned from her. And so, mentors can be everywhere. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be older than you. You just have to be willing to, in your heart, and I'm just going to be transparent, what is missing. What is missing in terms of what you need in order to become what you want to become. And one person is not going to have all of that. But if you can attract and find different pieces of what you need, and I can honestly say that's what I need. I didn't find one perfect alpha mentor. That's not how it worked. In my life journey towards where I am today, the universe has brought many people into my, headway, and that has made a great difference in my life. And some of them have been around my whole life. Some of them were just there for an instant, but they all played an important role in my life. And I'm just thankful, really, that the Creator created an opportunity for me to meet them.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Nathaniel. Mike, I'll let you, well, Nathaniel, if you wanted to say anything else before we closed out, that would be great. And then we're going to go into our announcements, and then we're going to get out of here.
Well, I know y'all are probably tired of hearing me talk by now, so I won't talk too much. I'll just say thank you all again for choosing to serve. Thank you for feeling as if in your heart that PSC was the right organization for you to connect with. I hope that you will continue to be a part of, keep that same energy. Michael is working hard to make sure that we're engaged in an authentic way in many of the schools that Michael is connecting to through some of the people on this call's engagement, as well as people who are not in school, who need to be involved in this effort as well. So just keep up the good work. Don't get discouraged. There's always hope, but hope doesn't turn into anything real unless you're willing to fight for it. And I think that our future is worth fighting for. And I hope that you'll choose to fight with us.
Awesome. Can everybody give Nathaniel a virtual hand clap under the reactions? But please, thank you so much.
Yeah, y'all supposed to teach me how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. That was awesome. We really appreciate you. So real quick before we let you all go, thank you again. Happy International Youth Day. Please check out the KTSE website. It has all of our events. We're going to develop that career links portion here soon that we talked about in our breakout session. The ambassador's application closes in about 3 weeks. So please, if you're interested in ambassadors, I already have some of you all's application. Please fill that out. We have a document called the Personal Action Plan. So if you're feeling stuck and you feel like you want to get involved, but you don't have anything on paper to hold you accountable, we have a document that we can share. So please just email me or text me. And finally, the Just Energy Summit is still going to happen. Initially, it was going to be in Savannah, but now because of COVID reality, it is going to be online. And it's going to be over several days, the last week of September and the first week of October. So please come be a part if you're interested in learning more. We usually have about a 70% community, 30% practitioners. So you'll meet people who are in the field and people who have just made this their life work because they care about their community. So please come be a part of that. And if you want to be a volunteer, ambassadors obviously are going to get in for free, so that's a perk. We would love to have you and come experience the 2020 Just Energy Academy. Just Energy Summit. The Just Energy Academy actually graduates tomorrow, and if you're interested in that, that's going to happen next year as well. Erica, did I miss anything? I'm trying to rush so I don't take up too much of their time.
Nope, you didn't miss anything. I'm just posting the link in the chat for keeping updated with what's going on with KTSE. So I'm posting the link here in the chat. We encourage you to go to our Keep in Touch tab on our website and sign up there. We send emails there about the ambassador program, about events like these, about options to connect with Nathaniel. So we encourage you all to go there. And just for the ambassadors piece, just kind of like a second on the ambassadors piece, we really, really need you all to apply to be an ambassador. We're trying to have 10 ambassadors this year from all over the region. And one of the great perks about being an ambassador is continuous connection to Nathaniel and to all the PSE staff. The great thing and the great part of being connected to mentors and getting new mentors or learning from people is getting connected to organizations like PSE. And so we're going to have a lot of great opportunities for KTSE ambassadors to connect to PSE staff. And also, that wave of folks is going to be the first wave of folks to learn about fellowships and employment opportunities at PSE and our other partner organizations as well. So we encourage you all to get connected there. And I posted the Keep in Touch link last in the chat. So please click that and fill out that quick form so we can make sure that you get all the emails about KTSE events and initiatives.
Yeah. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Have a blessed day. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
That was great, y'all.
Thanks, Chandra.
Thank you.
I haven't heard Nathaniel talk in a while, but that's one of the best talks I've ever heard him give.
Yeah, he laid